Something happened after the pandemic, something happened after Jio in India. The modern employee's brain is gone case. You actually don't get equity for doing work. You get equity for taking risk. Companies don't want theory anymore, they want execution. Can you build a product that solves a problem? For most of you, any ESOP you get in any company, whether here or outside, just assume it's worth zero. Today, you would rather intern at Apple for zero than get paid 30K a month at some Lalu Prasad company. It will take you 20 years to make serious money if you work here or anywhere else. So, I'll repeat why I'm doing this. I think we have rapidly scaled. Last year, this time, we were like 6 people or something like that. And now we're a lot of people. And a lot of you are fairly young. This is your first job, this is your second job. And I think this is not just true for you, but it's also true for the people that follow me on Instagram or YouTube, and generally youngsters today, right? Which is, nobody has ever told you how to work in a workforce. Because most of you graduated during the pandemic. Most of you have never worked professionally in a job. And when you get fired, nobody actually tells you why you're getting fired. They'll say misperformance or this or that, right? So what is happening, and this is something I've noticed from a very zoomed out perspective, that you're getting information from the wrong sources and you are taking what other people are creating as content and thinking your life is supposed to be like that, which is not really how it's supposed to be. So hopefully this session teaches you 2 things. One, what we expect as employers, and not just us, but I think general companies in India, right? Most startups, most companies in India, what we expect. And number 2, how you can actually progress in your career. Because careers today are very different from careers a decade ago. A decade ago or 20 years, when my mom, let's say, was working in banking, it took her many years, like 30 years of grinding. Same company, maybe one company shift after 15 years. It's very different now. You have plenty of options. You have the world has changed. So hopefully this is useful for you, because I think in general, I've thought about how can this lead to success for you. So it's called rules of engagement, which is what do companies expect from you and what you should expect from companies. And yeah, it's a guide to working in the modern Indian workforce. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. Now, serious companies. And there are 2 kinds of companies, okay? You'll see this now. There are 2 kinds of companies where there's some companies who are serious, who are scaling, who pay employees real cash, where they have real clients and you provide a service or you build a product or something. And there's a bunch of unserious companies as well. And more unserious companies are popping up. We'll talk about this. Serious companies only want to work with people who understand the rules of engagement. It's like, I don't know if you know this, but today, let's say if you leave here and go work at another company, do you know what the first thing the other company will do after you interview? Anyone has any guesses? Yeah, so Makdoum want to answer that. So what Makdoum said is, they do a process called due diligence. How many of you have not heard of due diligence? Okay, just so you know, suppose you leave here and you join another company, or forget about us, right? Like suppose you worked at Flipkart and you left Flipkart and went to another company. The HR at the new company will call your old company and they will ask them, how was this person? Did this person behave well? Like, was he useful? Right? And we get lots of such calls, right? People who join us and then move on, etc. And it's not just here, but in every other company. So stuff like that, serious companies only want to work with serious people. So when they call, they're mostly asking about seriousness, right? Is this person worth hiring? So we're going to cover 4 things today. The first one is the invasion of the modern employee's brain. I think something happened after the pandemic, something happened after Jio in India. The modern employee's brain is gone case. Hopefully we can correct some of that today. And what is a founder and what is the difference between a founder and an employee? Because today, being a founder is cool, but it wasn't always so. Third one is organization structure and expenses. Like if we are charging a client, let's say 5 lakhs or 10 lakhs, how much money do we make out of it? How much money do you make out of it? How do we calculate the expenses? All of that. We're going to reveal all of that cool stuff today. And how you can really make money. Okay, so we're going to cover all 4 of this, how you can accelerate your career, how you can grow, whether you want to become a founder tomorrow, whether you want to become a senior executive here or at any other company. We're going to cover all 4 of it. Next slide. This is a healthy brain. You can see nice pink, smooth brain. Okay, let's see an unhealthy brain now. This is a damaged brain. Okay, this might sound like a joke, especially this last one here. 10 jobs in 2 years plus 6 agencies. But it's not actually a joke. Like me, Rohit, Ronit, Lavina, we sit in that room sometimes hiring people. I'm sure, AOS Labs is also hiring a bunch of people. And when we sit, the number one thing that most people say is, yeah, I did this, then 3 months later I did this, then 3 months later I did this. And then, I've started a company, and then I also run this company. And we've had so many of these people now that it's like now become like a chronic pattern. And it reminds me of when I was like 20 years old and confused. And I wish somebody just like picked me up by the ear, whacked me one time and said, no, this is not how you do things. Here is the better way to lead your career. So I think everyone has a damaged brain, but it's not your fault. You know whose fault it is? It's our fault. The people who make content. Right? Because, and not us specifically, but content creators, right? In general, today Instagram is flooded with content saying, by 25, you'll be millionaire mindset, driving a Rolex or a Lamborghini, and like wear a Rolex, and you'll be working 4 hours a week or whatever. Nobody here who's made it, I get to work with some really fascinating people. Have you seen any of them work 4 hours a week? No, they're here like a lot of the time, and they're here Saturdays and Sundays as well. So it's really different from what people think it is. Next slide. So I'll tell you why no one tells you the truth on social media. You would expect by now people to tell the truth on social media, to come out and be like what it's actually like to work at a company. But there's I'll tell you the challenge. Challenge is, today social media is mostly young people. Mostly people in their 20s, 21, 22, 23, something in that age range, right? Young people are mostly playing status games as an extension of college. Most of you went to college? Yeah? And in college you had status games? कौन popular था? क्या चल रहा है? कौन से branch करूं? You're just extending that. Most of these people are just extending that in the social world. I see one tweet every day of somebody else, saying, oh, this person got placed for this, but why am I not getting a job for this? Whatever, right? It's an extension of college. And this is the most important thing, right? The third thing. And it's something I suffered from when I was very, very young. Everyone here, especially if we have hired you, you are super high potential. And everyone sitting, watching this kind of content, especially online, you're super high potential. But there's a gap between potential and tested potential. And I wish I understood this when I was younger. I'll tell you what this means. In your head, you might think, okay, I can do this and this. I'm the best video editor. I'm the best software engineer. But being tested is hard. Like most people, when they get faced with this test, and we'll talk about the test later, right? In every person's career, you have to go through this one test. With tests, not just can you do the skill, but can you provide outcomes? There's a very big gap between the two. And every year that passes, I see this gap for most people like widening. And lastly, older people, the reason no one tells you the truth is that older people in their 30s, they have no incentive to go on social media and tell the truth. A, because they don't want competitors to come like do the same thing that they're doing. And B, there are people like Narayan Murthy who have tried to tell the truth that you have to work X number of hours or whatever it is and really got cancelled for it. Nobody wants to take the risk. And I know lots of founder friends, right? They're all like damn scared. They're all like, shit, if I say this, what will people say of me? Will they go cancel my app? That stuff happens. That's a real fear in many founders' heads. So they just don't say anything online. So what happens? This first crowd, the first two crowds, right? People playing the status game, the young people playing the status games are flooding social media with all sorts of things that are not really true, because you only find out what works or not in your career by the time you're 30. I'm 31 today. And I had to do a lot of wrong things to then eventually do the right thing. All right, next slide. This is a picture of Socrates. You know Socrates? This is a probably an artist rendition, okay? I'll tell you a very interesting story about Socrates. I'm butchering the details, but Socrates was exiled and then eventually he was asked to take like a cup of poison. This is poison. By the state. Do you know why? Because Socrates told the truth. Socrates told his students, I'm making a very simplistic story out of this. He told his students, go question everything. If there's somebody being religious, go question them. Why? Why? And you know how young people are, right? They start questioning everything. They went to all the priests, they started questioning them, this, that. So the state found him guilty and said, boss, you're making everything unruly. And, just throw away everything you've said. Just say, I was wrong about everything and we'll let you go. But if you stick to your ideals, we're going to make you drink some poison. Socrates stood for the truth. He stuck to his ideals. He ended up having to drink poison. The lesson from this is not stick for the truth and drink poison or whatever. The lesson to learn from this is a lot of people are put in this, especially people who are successful, are put in this position where they can't go out publicly tell what made them successful or what the rules of success are. Because firstly, the rules are not as like do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a little bit complicated. It's a lot of hard work, stick around for 20 years, and it's not good content. If I made a video saying, here's how you get successful, and I said, it takes 20 years or 10 years, all of you would click away. Be like, nahi, aaj ek trick batao. Faceless channel. What is the trick today to be successful? So nobody says it because there's no incentive. You'll just shout at them in the comments. Anyway, next slide. So social media, therefore, is lies by omission. Which means, and this is Plato's, it's this allegory of the cave, where there are some prisoners, and you can see they can see some shadows. But what they're seeing is somebody holding up like a cat or whatever, and they're seeing a cat here, so they think there's actually a cat there. So you're not actually seeing reality for what it is. You're seeing social media, which is a mirror of reality. So reality is here, it's a mirror, and it's coming back to you. But reality is different, it's messy, and hopefully through this deck we are able to, tease out reality a bit. So for example, the one person or the few people that go out and actually say it takes hard work and energy and really lots of failure and lots of, careers, ups and downs, when they go say these things, nobody likes it and it becomes national news. Next slide. Okay. Now again, I'm repeating this for the nth time, but this is what most youngsters think. How many of you think you'll be a millionaire by 25? Millionaire is 8.4 crores. Okay, we have one person there. Yeah, this might sound like a joke, but especially if you go to tier 2, tier 3 India, a lot of people really believe that. Because you can see it from their feed, no? Ultimately, whatever's on your feed, you end up thinking that is true. Some of you, especially engineers, right, believe that you build some magical X technology, it's going to make you super rich, and that can be reached through pure skill maximization. As with the MD of Google, of YouTube, a week ago or something like that, we were at Google Marketing Live. And interesting thing he said is Google's a product company, but in India, we have so many people, it's like a services company. But everyone still, especially engineers, have that myth that you build a technology and you do something and then, like that social network movie, that you get rich. Some of you on the other side, creators, think you create content every day, it's going to make you rich. I think Ronet told me this, very funny thing he told me, which is, the minute I see one of our employees creating content, I'm like, has he left? So everyone thinks that everyone does, like so many people have done this, right? We are a very, very young company, we just started. But like people will leave us sometimes, and then very next week, they start doing content, right? And they do it exactly for 2 weeks, and then they give up because obviously, as you know, in 2 weeks, nothing happens. So people think creating content is going to make you rich and famous. Some of you who want to be entrepreneurs think funding is easily available. This is very specific maybe to the online audience more than this audience, but this idea that you can just go to an investor and he'll give you like 1 crore, 5 crores, 10 crores, it just doesn't work that way. Especially now, it just doesn't work that way. It's actually really hard to raise funding, and it's very rare for you to be able to raise funding in this climate without having like history of building something reasonably successful. Next thing is you can have the ideal life without trade-offs or sacrifices. Actually, the people who work 4 hours a week and are rich, the people I know, let's say, have actually spent a decade working 10 hours a day. It's almost like you first have to do the hard work, the extreme hard work, and then you can spend the time chilling. There are examples of people working 8 hours a day and doing reasonably well, but it's very hard to start your career saying, I'll work 4 hours a day for the next 30 years, but get rich. It's very, very difficult to do that. The last problem, which is the system is broken. I was like this when I was young. It's like government sucks. These guys suck. Politicians don't know anything. Nobody knows anything. My teachers are idiots. System is completely broken. I can fix it. I think my ideas are better. But what I didn't realize when I was 20 and between 20 and 30 is the gap between ideas and execution is huge. It's massive. And we'll go through why it's hard. And lastly, there's Elon Muskitis. The most popular influencer in the world is not Mr. Beast. In my opinion, it's Elon Musk. He has like hundreds of millions of followers. And Elon Musk has convinced everybody that you can start 5 companies at one time and do really, really well and make a shit ton of money and be really popular on social media. And he's done like deep tech companies, right? So it's not easy. And if you look at Elon Musk's like career graph, he started very, very early. And his first success was actually X, right? The PayPal, what they did with PayPal. So he's had time to become Elon Musk. It's very hard to be an Elon Musk at 20 or 22. Okay, next slide. So I want to tell you what reality is really like. Some stories of successful companies, how long it actually takes. This is 2008. I'm sure this picture is not from 2008, but I couldn't find an old picture of Zomato. This is an old article about Flipkart. Flipkart opens its first office in Bengaluru, pin code 560034. They delivered 3,400 shipments successfully. Okay? And there's some factors that led to success. Today, Flipkart is massive. Zomato is massive. So is Flipkart. Flipkart IPO'd billions of dollars. Zomato billions of dollars. And look at the gap, 2008 and 2024. You're hearing about Zomato, Flipkart now. It's been popular in the last like 3-4 years. It's really been in your business case studies are made out of it. But look at the gap. What is 2024 minus 2008? 16 years. The guys who made money, the guys and girls who made money at Zomato and Flipkart in the early days have probably worked there for a very long time. And they've been there early. Right? They have thousands of employees now. But I'm sure the first 100 are treated like royalty. But more importantly, the factors that led to success of Zomato, Flipkart, it's very hard for you to replicate them today in the same way. The software methods and frameworks. If a Zomato guy 10 years ago, like I remember there was this one very interesting article by Shopify about how they shifted from a monolithic service to microservices. Have you guys heard of this? Tejas, you heard of this, right? That Shopify, that famous article where they shifted from monolithic this thing to microservices. And everyone said, that's the way to do things, right? And there's so many debates. I'm sure there are debates even today of, okay, Zomato uses this or or Flipkart uses this. But remember, that's probably not why they got successful. They use it because it's a relic of the fact that it's so complicated as a system now, it's hard for them to change. Next is the type of marketing. You know, there are many businesses that grew purely on ads. Actually, that was the primary way to grow in India or any other country. You would run ads. You know how you'd run ads? You'd put them in the newspaper. Social media, I mean, Instagram, Facebook, Google ads. How old are these companies? What happened before that? What happened 100 years before that? So advertising as a medium has changed. In my opinion, now ads are also dead. Like today, if you see Ranveer Singh in another ad, you're like, whatever, you scroll. You're like, Tanmay ne ek aur banaya. Right? So advertising has also changed. And in fact, you guys know the D2C companies that we're now seeing that are becoming very, very successful are becoming successful on the back of influencer marketing. Right? So the way they are growing, the way they are scaling has become completely different now. And I think in the last 1 year, we have been seeing this rise, at least in India, of like YouTube-driven businesses. We've seen this in the US 3-4 years. India is always lagging behind US for a bit, but we've seen this in the US, right? Mr. Beast, you go to any store in New York, you go to any store in LA, there is a damn Feastables right on the table. Prime in every fridge. So building distribution first, free advertising, you spend zero, your cost of acquisition is zero, and then you build a business on top. Seems to be the way that people are doing it now. But if you go back, a lot of people, like sometimes, you know, Sagar and Shreyans have to deal with this all the time, right? Where we work with some brands and they're like, what's the treatment of this video, right? Where they're still thinking like 20 years ago, where they're still thinking like 30 years ago. Market opportunities, changes and challenges. Market has also evolved a lot. Like today, you'd find it very difficult to make a D2C brand that does what, let's say, I don't know, like a Nykaa does. Because it's already clogged, it's already saturated. Like the reason we, I think, got some traction is because AI became a new inflection point and we said, okay, we can create content around this, it might be useful. But many people with ideas often say, okay, we'll do the same as somebody else, but there are like 500 people doing the same thing. Okay, and lastly, even the founding DNA, right? The founding DNA that you needed back then was like a proper dhanda P&L guy. Like in India, this is a known fact, right? If there's some Lala type guy sitting there thinking through, aaj 1 rupaya gaya, 2 rupaya aaya, that's like the way to succeed. I still believe you need some of that, but I think the DNA of the founders now has started to change more in terms of, this is my opinion, whoever is able to advertise and market best, get their product in front of as many eyes as possible, wins. This is why our clients really come to us, right, at Yas, where they want us to do YouTube for them. It's for the same reason, because they're starting to realize actually building products is getting easier over time, building distribution is getting harder. It's something that people have started realizing over time. Hardik Pandya not from the Indian cricket team, but from Unacademy has a great thread on this. I'll read it out for you because I think the screen size is small. I've interacted a bit with the Gen Z workforce in the last few months. You'd see a consistent pattern around their casual disregard for hard work, longevity of a career, and the trade-offs involved. Their argument, and I know many of your argument and many people online as well, is that work has evolved. It has, but here's what hasn't. Gen Z speaks fondly about setting their own terms for time commitment, not making as many sacrifices, defining their own benchmarks of success. I'll create my own agency. How many of you think you'll create your own agency or business at some point? Honest truth from everyone. Everyone else, come on. I know I've spoken to some of you who wanted to start your own agency or company at some point. There's a lot of hands, right? So I'll create my own agency. I'll freelance from Goa. How many people have ever thought at least once I'll freelance from Goa? Just look at the number of hands in the room. How many of you have thought I'll build my own YouTube channel? Okay, that's literally every hand in the room. I want to build a community and mentor people. Right, a lot of hands. Problem is, when prodded enough, you learn that their willingness usually stems from the pride of having figured out a market arbitrage. Okay? You know what a market arbitrage is? It means you've learned something that nobody else knows. That's what an arbitrage is. Like basically, you're saying, I have some information that nobody else does. I'm going to take advantage of this information. And as if they landed on this asymmetric advantage that wasn't afforded to the folks before them. The problem about market arbitrages, and he's very right about this, because just so you know, I wrote a book in 2018 called Pajama Profit, where we literally covered lots of this. It's called Pajama Profit. It's about literally sitting and freelancing. Obviously, we didn't talk about companies as much, but we spoke a lot about freelancing. We also spoke about building a personal brand. There's a chapter in the book, 2018, 6-7 years ago, right? The problem with market arbitrages, they spread like wildfire, and in no time, everyone knows about them. Now you all know the techniques of how to build a channel or how to go freelance or whatever, right? To exploit an arbitrage, you still need to be in the top 1% of what you do. So not only do you need to find an advantage, you also need to be in the top 1% of that advantage. It's really hard. And the last thing is, no arbitrage is enough to sustain a 25-year-old career. Let's say you build an agency on something new. How are you going to sustain it 25 years? Right? So these things are not unique to you. Like sometimes some people wake up and they're like, oh, I have this unique idea. I'll build this agency, or I'll do this YouTube, or I'll freelance from Goa. It's now the most common thought on social media, especially in India. You need to find something new. Next slide. So the problem is, you are not only getting wrong information, you're also getting delayed information. Like I said, from the Zomato story, your takeaways from what framework they use, what stack they use, how they did things, are so old that you're making life decisions on what worked 1 or 2 decades ago. There's some people who are making life decisions based on what worked even before that, like all the guys going to entrance exams right now. Nothing against them. If you're in the top 1%, you'll win. But if you're not in the top 1%, your life is going to be hell. There's a reason today's founders, for example, are building on top of YouTube and WhatsApp. We're not stupid. We know how to build products. We built scenes a couple of years ago, right, where we built out the entire expanse by ourselves. But we learned a very important lesson, which is that building on top of YouTube and WhatsApp are much more valuable because you're taking advantage of their inherent distribution. And your costs are lower, right? Like you want to do video streaming by yourself, Tejas will tell you all the bills. If you want to build video streaming by yourself, this is more for the engineers. But the last gen did things differently. But you have to keep evolving with the times, right? And the algorithm only surfaces successes and flashy lifestyles. Your algorithm will not show you some struggler. It will show you bare biceps and then Dhruv Rathi and then the next success and the next success and then Karthik Aaryan's McLaren car, whatever. The algorithm is built for that. And it's giving your brain like cancer or something. So, and there's also massive amounts of survivorship bias, right? The people that did the exact same things but failed. You can take what I've done in the last like 6 months, 8 months, or you can take, let's say what Rohit has done, and you can find 5 other guys who've done exactly the same thing with exact same steps. But because they missed 1 or 2 things, they weren't able to make it. You know how many clones there are of some of the businesses we have here? The minute we make something work, we'll see 1 clone. And you know, it's so strange, right? Like there's nothing against the clones. It's just they're doing exactly the same thing, but there were some factors or timing that made our thing work at the time that it worked. So I feel like, and we're still not a big company. We're still a very tiny company, right? But I don't think copying another business would work so easily. And a change in what is cool. So what was cool 10 years ago? Entrepreneurship was not cool 10 years ago. Suddenly it's become cool. So you're also tracking what is on TV and what is on social media today. Next slide. This is a picture of me from 2015. It's almost 9-10 years ago. That is me in Delhi with 3 other co-founders running a company called JobSpire. This is a makeshift microwave. I mean, this is a microwave, but it's a makeshift standing table. I had a backache back then and injured my back or something. It's my MacBook, and this is like a really old building in Delhi. I started there. I'll tell you one thing. In 2015, it was uncool to run your own company in India. You looked at as unemployed. My parents didn't know how to explain what I did to their friends and everybody else. And startups, there was some hype around startups, but it was still seen as an uncool thing to do. Okay? And then we had social network, pictures, Silicon Valley. Media started talking about it. Iska itna profit banaya, isne itna funding raise kiya. Suddenly it became cool. Right? Next slide. And that's why in my head, and I know this is true for some of our leadership as well, there are 2 kinds of founders. Okay, like I told you, there's one kind of founder, like that's Sridhar Bembu. I have crazy amount of respect for him. He has hundreds, and Zoe is a client, as you all know. Hundreds of thousands of employees. He's working full time. He has a real board, real consequences. I don't know if he has a board, but there are real consequences. He's actually made money. He looks at everything in trade-offs, right? Money, time, peace of mind. Much less concerned about status because he already has, the serious people already know who he is, and very respected in the community. Right? Now, I'm making some assumptions, but I'm saying that in general, this kind of these founders I look up to as well, right? There's another kind of founder, which I've been seeing a lot of lately, and there's nothing wrong with this, but this is generally what social media encourages, where you're a founder for the status. You just want to, be cool, and you're doing a lot of things at once, and there's nothing wrong with doing a lot of things at once, but one thing has to work. One thing has to generate cash for you to be able to take multiple bets. You can't do too many things, and that's the nuance, right? You can't do 4 things together unless one thing is absolutely crushing it. And we are a good example of this, by the way. Yet to breach any reasonable revenue, has no employees, therefore no real cost. Okay? Very young, therefore lower risk. Do you know the risk of a founder who is 30 years old, who has 2 kids, or let's say 35 years old, 2 kids, parents to take care of, 3 employees, versus a 20-year-old who's like, I started an agency today. Do you know what the risk profile difference between these 2 is? Massive gap. You can't even call them the same type of, the odds for, the stakes for both these kinds of founders are so different. That's why when somebody's 35 and they start a company, I take them seriously. I'm like, oh shit, big deal for you. And I think main thing is, and this is the thing that really confuses, many of these guys are looking for jobs. It's like, wait, aren't you like a founder? Like, run your company. Why are you looking for a job? Unless you've shut down your company, then it's fine. Then it makes sense. But yeah, it's just confusing. And they're yet to earn the respect of existing founders, but that's okay. That's a technicality. All respect can be earned. Like, it might take you half a decade, 5 years, 10 years to 15 years, but you can earn other people's respect. So this is just a temporary pit stop. Next slide, please. The reality is that entrepreneurship is really hard. It takes 10 plus years to make real money. 2015 is when I started. I think I still haven't made like crazy money. It takes a long time to make real money. Most people will fail. 90% of people will fail. The ones who succeed make very little money, worse than a job. It's not a false stat. Just because you hear of the same 50 companies in the news, half of which are going to die. They're unicorns, but they don't have real profits, so they might die. There's so many founders who, it looks like a success, but they've not made real money. It's worse than a job, honestly. And they just wasted their time. It's not real risk. If you're hedging with a job, good founders will not take you seriously. And like I said, family and age shoot up the risk. And the thing about being a founder is you have some good months and you make zero on the other months. Everyone there at least knows this, right? Some good months, but you make zero on other months. And you'll often have radical pivots. You look foolish for decades. Earlier, I used to look at somebody like, let's say, a Gaurav Munjal, right? And I'd look at them pivoting and I was like, why are they pivoting? But now I get it. I'm like, yo, what you're trying to seek is not the validation of other people. You're trying to seek something that you can build that works, that people pay for. And sometimes you will get it wrong. So sometimes I will come to you and be like, sorry, this was not the way to do it. Let's do it this way. It's not because I'm dumb or scatterbrained or whatever. It's because I'm looking for something that the market will pay for. Because I've learned the hard way that if you build something just based on your conviction and you don't make money out of it, everyone burns out. You will all run out of motivation. You'll leave 2 years later or 6 months later, whatever it is. So you have to look for PMF, and sometimes you look foolish for a long time doing that. Your friends will make more money than you. This is kind of obvious. Anyone with a job, stable job, especially a company doing well, will make more money than you. And this is more for the engineers, but courage and staying power are far more important than intelligence. Twitter now is like filled with like, oh, if you're not like 190 IQ and this and that, you're not going to make it. That's not true. Like go talk to any real estate guy or anyone, any broker or something. They're making far more money than many of these engineers, and they're not really over-reliant on intelligence. They're actually reliant on courage, relationships, and staying power. And like I said, the arena will knock humility into you. If you're a founder for 10 years, I've never met a founder who's been around for 10 years and cocky. Never seen that. Especially if they're bootstrapped, right? Like, but the ego and arrogance of a founder who just raised 5 million, oh my God, it's next level. But the minute you've been in this game for 10 years, whether you've raised money or not, you're like, anything can take me out, anytime. Right? So it will knock humility into you, and that's why I love spending time with founders who've been around for like a decade, longer than that, because they just know so much and they're also so humble. It's the opposite of, what you get to see, at least on social media. Next slide, please. Okay, so now let's get into your parts of the equation. Has anyone wondered why you don't have equity? Equity. No, nobody else knows what equity is? I see Bharat, I see Vishal. Okay, I see Makdum, I see a bunch of other people. Okay, so I'll tell you the difference between why founders get equity and how equity works as founders. Because I've had weird conversations with this over the year, because this is just not taught in college. This topic is not taught in college. So you have no idea, especially because like startups happened slightly later than when college curriculums sort of froze in India. People think you get equity for doing work. You actually don't get equity for doing work. You get equity for taking risk. This is a very important concept to drive home, okay? This has nothing to do with foundership for a second. A Warren Buffett can come in and invest some amount into a company, never talk to the founder ever, but still own equity because he spent money on it. And then 5 years later, that could be worth 5x as much or 10x as much, right? In bootstrap companies, I'll tell you what real risk looks like for a founder. This is zero salary till the company makes profit. This takes decades. With EOS, I took zero till the company made profit. And we are only like, 6-8 months old, right? Most companies are bootstrapped, and funding is an anomaly. I did some research on the math. I don't know how accurate this is. This is from whatever I found on Google. There are 1.66 million active companies in India. Barely any are funded. So this entire equity, you have a percentage of the company, and then, when the company IPOs, you make crazy money. That barely happens in India actually. Investors get equity, this is investors, not founders, who just put in cash, get equity for taking capital risk, not for doing work. Okay? And a lot of people get pissed off sometimes, like especially when I was younger and I didn't know what equity really stood for and I was negotiating equity with other people. The thing that whenever the conversation broke up, let's say I want to start a company, let's say selling candles. And I was talking to another guy and he wanted 50% and I said, no, I don't think you're worth 50%, I'm worth 70%, whatever it is, whatever the number is. And the guy says, no, I will go start my own thing. If an equity conversation breaks down between founders, they move on, one of the founders moves on, and either he starts the same business or different business or gets a job or whatever. But the math is simple, 100% of 0 is 0. So a lot of people really optimize for ownership without realizing actually, and I'm a good example of this, especially now, right? Where I'm not optimizing for ownership in any company. I just want to own enough, but I want other people to be heavily incentivized as well because I realize that 100% of 0 is 0. What's the point of owning everything but not, making profit, not having other people contribute? Now, here's the part that is a little bit hard to digest for most employees, but Y Combinator will echo this. Most other companies, most this ones will echo this, right? If you are paid a market rate salary, the amount of equity you take home is 0. It's a controversial point, but it's a true point. Equity is a measure of risk. Okay, let's say you could either get a job at TCS or some other company or whatever. Let's say some of you might be working at some other agency or whatever, right? And let's say, you were paid 3 lakhs an annum plus 1 lakh stock. I'm just giving some random numbers. So let's say 4 lakhs an annum you were getting. Okay, now the question to ask is that market rate for you? Would the market pay you more? Okay, I'll give you an example of somebody taking risk. There's a guy that I really want to hire. He's superb guy, but very expensive, right? It might run into 40, 50 lakhs, which I can't afford at this point in our career, considering we're bootstrapped, right? So I'm like, yo, take a 90% salary cut and come work with us. But I'll give you equity. How much equity? Well, we'll value the thing and we'll figure it out. Now, whether he'll say yes or no, I don't know. But that's a big deal. He's 35 years old. He has 2 kids. And yada, yada, yada. He already has a job, an active job with where he spent n number of years with them. So generally, we don't give equity to people who are paid market rate or very close to market rate. Okay? But we are trying to change that, right? In the sense that we're still like, let's still incentivize you to play the long game with us. Right? In some cases, not in all cases, in some of our companies. So employees with market rate salaries are still given some amount of equity to align motivation. Right? Just so you're still motivated to do the thing. Now, in the way we are structured, some of our companies' equity is actually valuable. Some of our companies' equity is completely useless. Especially in agencies, my opinion is equity is not very useful unless you decide to IPO tomorrow like a TCS or a Wipro or something like that. We have no plans of IPOing. 9 out of 10 times though, equity is worth 0. So the guy who's coming in from Google or whatever company, right? Let's say whoever I convinced to come at 1/10 of the salary and come do a very big role here. 9 out of 10 times, he'll probably make 0 out of that. It'll just be pure risk for him. It would basically be like he's thrown his money into whatever he currently has into the fireplace. That's his risk to take. That's why I no longer hard sell on this. I'm like, yo, it's your choice. Here's the risk. You want to come? Come. Here's what you're giving up. And 9 out of 10 times they say no to me, which is fine, but they need to be very clear about what the risks are before coming in. Aligning motivations of several people, even with money, is damn hard. In fact, if I would argue what the crux of entrepreneurship is this, it's 2 things, right? One is finding a market gap, and number 2 is getting the first 10 people to come work with you for lower price and incentivizing them in whatever way possible. This is the hardest part. Because I'll tell you one thing, when you start, you have nothing. You start from a 1500 square foot house. We had nothing. Anyone taking a risk on us back then was foolish. But again, it's very hard with money, but there it's easier to do with something like an equity or a profit share. Be like, I don't know where it's going to work out, but at least you have a chunk of it. At least you tried hard. At least we tried hard. We gave it a shot. Next slide. Okay. The next question that most of you have is, why does the company get paid so much more than me? Have you ever thought of this? How many of you thought of this? Hands up, come on. I want to see more hands. A lot of people online have thought about this. This is a subreddit called Developers India, where this thing says, just got to see today how much my boss charges the client. I'm working at a services company and I'm the sole developer in one of the projects I'm working on. I'm paid well, so can't really complain. My boss doesn't do anything besides just talking to the client and understanding requirements. But yesterday I got to see how much he charges the clients and blew my mind. It's more than 5 times I'm getting. So I wrote to the client if he wants to hire me directly. But he forwarded the email to my boss and I got questions why I did that. Don't clients know how much it costs to hire their own developers? If I were to do freelance work, how can I get clients like this? This has 620 likes, by the way, which is pretty good engagement for developers India. For a Reddit community, it's pretty good engagement. First comment, honestly, I'm still surprised your boss hasn't fired you. The premium they pay is for the trust associated with the company, past experience, and so on. I'll tell you what I think. I think this gap comes from not knowing how much it costs to run a company. That's the thing, right? Like when you've been a founder for a while, then you kind of get this thing of the cost. Every week when we discuss P&L with the team, it's almost like, shit, we paid for that also? Shit, when did this expense come up? Shit, now we have to pay deposit. Oh shit, the last house that we vacated, deposit, only half came back because the owner scammed us. All of that, like it's just, every week it's like I sit with the teams and I'm like, where did the money go? But it's important to understand this because we'll break down the math. Next slide. Okay. So I just want to briefly explain why do I get paid X when company makes Y. First thing is business relationships are built on discovery. Okay. First, the client has to discover you. Let's say you are running an agency. Let's say you are running an agency. All of you started an agency tomorrow called YouTube ABCD agency. Okay. There are 4 things you have to do. First, you have to get discovery. You need to get a client to know who you are, to be attracted to you. Okay? Then you need to convert them. Just being attracted is not good enough. Just bringing someone to that room is not good enough. They have to convert. You have to do a sale. Okay? Then you have to do first time proof of delivery. You have to do one video. Like as a video agency, we do one video. As AOS Labs, we have to do one, AI campaign for them. And then there's continued trust. If you've done one good one with them, then they're like, okay, let's do it again, let's do it again, let's do it again. I'm going to break this down because we are talking about businesses here. Discovery is marketing. How do you get a client to be attracted to you is marketing. Now, there are many ways to do marketing, but whatever, it's marketing. Conversion is sales. It's what Gurmeet does, right? It's like somebody's already come in, there's a lead, but Gurmeet's got to go close that lead. Then there is first time proof of delivery, which is almost always discounting. We probably lose money on the first thing we do for any client. There are some rare exceptions, but usually we lose money on the first delivery for any client. Okay, continued trust, which is relationship maintenance, quality of service, meeting them once in a while, making sure that if somebody leaves, we replace that person. It's a continued headache. Okay. Now remember 4 rules. Discovery is competitive versus other service providers. We are not the only company in India that does AI campaigns. We are not the only company in India that does AI business solutions. We're not the only company in India that does video editing or YouTube as a service. So discovery is competitive versus other service providers. Sales and conversion are unreliable. Just because Gurmeet has 5,000 leads, it doesn't mean he will get 5,000 conversions. Right? It's unreliable. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And even Gurmeet can't walk into a sales meeting knowing will this guy convert or not. It's very challenging. Discounting loses the company money. The first time I do anything for a client, we probably lose money. We know we're losing money. But it's okay. We're hoping that we do such a good job that the client does a second thing with us, a third thing with us, whatever it is. Trust erodes on the tiniest of things. Okay? I'll give you an example. The example was of Kaushik. Okay? Kaushik is young, but Kaushik is not a very good communicator. He's very, very good at what he does, but not very good communicator. And when Kaushik spends less time communicating with the client, even if we're doing work, it erodes the client's trust. And you might think, wait, that's so silly. I'm doing a good job. Yeah, but the client's not seeing it. From the client's perspective, it's like these guys, they told me 2 weeks ago this is going to be done. But 2 weeks later, I haven't even heard from them, right? And then the next day, if you send them the final footage, they're actually surprised. They're like, wait, you actually worked on this, right? So trust erodes on the tiniest of things. So there is this overhead, communication overhead of how can we keep, telling the client every day, every week, what we're up to and keeping them abreast, right? And if things are not working out, telling them things are not working out, you shouldn't be doing this, or you should cut your losses. Next slide. So I'll tell you how the internet and most of you do the math for a 10 lakh deal. Let's say we're getting a 10 lakh deal. Okay? Let's say per quarter we're getting a 10 lakh deal. First, GST will go. Modi sir will come, remove 18%, you now 8.2 lakhs. Fine. Okay. Now the way let's say we do the math, and these are not our numbers, but I'm just saying, let's say a sales rep gets paid 30K a month. Okay. Let's say a project manager gets paid 60K a month. Okay. Let's say an engineer gets paid 50K a month. Let's say it's an engineering project. Let's say we're doing something. Let's say one of our clients, let's say Dawat. Okay. Let's say roughly this is the math. I'm taking average math. Now you do quarterly. So quarterly that sales rep is being paid 1.2 lakhs. Project manager is being paid 2.5 lakhs. Engineer is being paid 2 lakhs. So total is 5.6 lakhs. Correct? What's the profit? 8.2 minus 5.6. What's the profit? Okay, whatever the profit is. Next slide. Okay, the real math, which most smart people will think for a 10 lakh deal, it's still fake math, but I'll tell you why. So you have sales rep, project manager, engineer. Then you have an internet fee. We spend Martin, what's our internet fee? What is it?
7.5 lakhs.
Yeah, we spend 7.5 lakhs a year on internet. Just internet for the office. Okay? So let's say, whatever, I'm breaking it down. I'm just saying 10K a month. Over a quarter, it's 40K. Electricity bill, our electricity bill is huge. But whatever, there's an electricity bill. Then there's office rent. We forgot in the last month that there's office rent. So there's office rent on this. Then there's a marketing cost. Remember, we said discovery is a cost. How do you get visible in front of another client? In our case, let's say if it's hosting a dinner, hosting a conference, whatever it is, whatever the way you acquire ads. So you can do this math, whatever this math comes up to. Okay? And still looks like it's profitable. But I'll tell you, this is still fake math. I'll tell you what the real math is like. The math that I see and China sees and Harsha sees and whatnot. Next slide. I've added some descriptions through ChatGPT because I didn't want to write it down, but I'll tell you what all it is. There's legal fees. You incorporate a company, there's some cost. That's a one-time cost, but fine. There's still ongoing costs in some cases, right? Contracts with clients. Every contract we do, the client is reviewed by a legal team. It's not here. The team is not here, but we have a client. We have a legal team. Then there's licenses and permits. In some cases, our business maybe not, but you need specific licenses to sell stuff. Then there's office rent, there's security deposit, there's utilities. Okay? Then there's furniture and equipment. Do you think these are free? They're not free. These are expensive. So there's desks, chairs, computers, there's printers, software licenses. Every day I wake up, see the P&L, there'll be an Adobe bill on the P&L. I'm like, shit. Right? Telecommunication systems, etc. Then there's recruitment cost. Do you know there's a cost to hiring a person? Especially people who come in and don't end up getting hired. Sometimes we work with agencies to help us hire people. Right? So there's entire recruitment costs here. Then there's advertising, online ads, print media, promotional materials. And we do spend. Sachin, you spend on ads, right? Where's Sachin? Yeah, you spend on ads. So there's advertising cost. Then there's website cost. Obviously, we're a video company. We don't give two shits about websites anymore. Then there's networking, which is if you want to get to an industry association, you want to go to a conference, you need membership to go into some of those. And some of those conferences are very useful. Harsha will tell you. The cost of flying to that conference and probably getting a deal and coming back is worth it. Right? So there's some networking costs. Then utilities we've already spoken about. Then insurance. Right? All our companies have some form of insurance or the other. Right? Then there is maintenance, which is somebody cleaning this on an everyday basis. Somebody walks in, cleans this, walks out. Right? And I'm just going to keep going through this, right? Because these are all real expenses. There's accounting and bookkeeping. Sushmita, where's Sushmita? Yeah, Sushmita is there. She does bookkeeping for us. Then there's office supplies, postage, travel expenses, whatever. Then there's bloody AWS and Cloudflare that walk in the room. Right? AWS will be like, I want this much. GPUs. And every week we have that discussion. Should we buy the GPUs or should we use an AWS? But eventually it always comes down to AWS because of ease of convenience. It's just easy to use an AWS, spin up something or use a replicate or something like that, right? Then there's software. I'm sure you guys use some software or the other. I was seeing Tejas look at the linear website. I was like, please not one more subscription. By the way, you guys spend like 50K a month on Zoom. Do you know that? Spend 50K a month on Zoom. Then we don't have data security right now because we don't have any client data. Then there is an emergency fund. And I think that's the most important thing, right? Remember, we did quarterly math, and the reason we did quarterly math is you need to make sure you have enough money in the bank, because if you have a bad quarter, you need to be able to use that previous month to be able to pay for this month. Because for you, and this is slightly different in the US with many jobs, but for you, it's like this thing of I get a salary every month. For me and the core team here, it's always like, okay, we need to make sure across the year we are able to pay this person this much, right? It's almost like ours is more one-shotted and we absorb the risk to give you a chronic, consistent salary. It's much easier for funded companies to do. It's much harder for bootstrap companies like ours to do. Then there's expansion cost. Sometimes you're planning for growth. You want to hire more people. And every day, someone or the other comes here and says, oh, I want to hire this one more person because my back is aching. I can't do this, whatever it is, right? So that's a cost, right? Then there's tax. Corporate tax comes in. Then there's whatever, professional services if we need advisors, if we're not sure about something and we need somebody else's advice. Okay, there's also an employee that doesn't work out cost. One of the biggest costs. If I hire somebody, let's say 5 lakhs an annum, and you don't work out for the company, and you've been there for 6 months because now we're starting to scale and we don't have time to sit on top of everybody's head, it's just a waste of money. It's almost like somebody else is doing one deal just to keep your salary alive. Then there's income tax rate, 30% in India. There's also a surcharge of 7% if your income ranges from 1 crore to 10 crores. So yeah, basically my point is, you should run a company once. It's not, that's why I said, right, serious founder, that's where I started from. Because the minute you're a serious founder, it's like you're going through this one every week. And then, every day somebody will come to you and be like, mujhe raise chahiye, company is doing well. Whatever it is, right? Next slide. Okay. After all this, the founders get paid. Being a bootstrap founder is the most inconvenient way to make money. And I don't know why you guys want to start agencies. The minute it works, it will burn you out. That being said, I'm a founder, so I love people who want to be entrepreneurs and do it themselves, but also prepare for 10 years of pain. If you're not prepared for 10 years of pain, don't do it. You can still have you can still work from 20 to 25, make good money, have fun, make the network, etc., and then start a company. My biggest regret at 20, when I started JobSpire, I was like, the problem is, I don't know anybody in the ecosystem. Today, a lot of our success, whatever said and done, is because I know people in the ecosystem. I'm able to just call up people and be like, hey, can we do XYZ for you? Can we do YouTube for you? Or can we do AI business solutions for you? But I didn't have that at 20. And I feel like if I'd done a job till like 24, 25, it would have been much more beneficial for me. But then I would have probably been successful at 35, 5 years later. And I still don't feel I'm successful. I still feel there's another 5 years left. So maybe I'd make money at 40, right? So just saying, this is the worst way to make money. Next slide. So again, the problem is many youngsters have not tried this seriously full-time for sustained periods of time. Okay? Fundraising has convinced a cohort of founders that these miscellaneous expenses should not be kept in mind while determining unit economics. They're like, bottle ka, manufacturing ka, 50 hai, I'm selling it for 70. Okay, and all of us do this, like especially the people who do business case studies, I get damn angry with them. Because they're like, they only take the cost of the item, the manufacturing the item, and how much the margin is. I'm like, bro, you're running a business, no? In the middle of this. You're running acquisition, all of that in the middle of this, no? Why are you just taking the cost of how much it costs to manufacture? Like people keep making this claim with Apple. Oh, Apple manufactures their phone at whatever price. Like, itna margin hai. But they run a business, huge business. It's the best advertising business in the world. You don't think that costs money? Engineers today can build ML models. This is especially true for Twitter, where many engineers will be like, yeah, I can build this model, I can do this, but cannot understand Excel. Okay, and this is especially true for our experiments team, right? Shashank and Vishal. Continually dumping, no offense to you guys, I'm just saying in general, any experiments team we would ever have, right? Continually dumping non-profitable risk on the company for personal exploration, which is status need. This is not a trivial problem. I'll tell you why. There was AOS Labs, there was a kid, I'm not going to take his name, but he really wanted to do research at the company. And while I really respect that, okay, here's my thesis around it. Why do you want to do the research? Okay, and if you really prod deep enough, they want to do the research because they want to post a tweet about it. They're like, see, I built this, I made this, whatever it is. Have status among their peers. But really, research, like especially if you start with research, it doesn't make any profit for us. Your salary is basically just a cost, and you're getting brownie points off of it. You're putting up an open source GitHub repository that, I saw one guy do it for another company where he didn't even mention the company's name, and he did it on the company's salary. Like, what is wrong with you guys? Right? So it's for your own status need. And the way we do research is very nice at labs, where we're like, first we'll use third-party models. If it really works, then we'll see, can we make a better model out of this? Can we fine-tune it for our needs? Because we are a bootstrap company. We are still in the philosophy that first let's make cash. After we make cash, you'll have excess, then now we have a experiments team. But this thing that experiments team has to be 2 people and not 50 people. Right? But there's some startups that do this completely inverted, by the way. Where they're like, okay, first we'll do research and experiments. So many people who have been funded, so many people who are building local language LLMs. I'm like, where is the business? It's better to do a business use case for it, sell ChatGPT ++, fine-tune one of those existing models, prove that there's money in the market for this, then build the model. But no, everyone's like doing it the other way around. Next slide. And this is true for the people who want to work on the hardest problems. This is true for filmmakers. How many of you are filmmakers in the company? Who want to make films? Devans he put his hand up and then he put his hand on. He's like, I know I'm going to get... Okay, I'll tell you the problem. This is true for filmmakers and really, really deep tech people, right? You have to choose between not getting paid for decades, starting your own company, or taking a huge risk and doing it at a company where you're not really getting paid cash up front, or you're getting equity instead, or go work at Google. In the filmmaker's case, go work at Hollywood or Bollywood or something. Okay, if you can get in. Early stage startups who haven't raised too much money, and this is more for the startup angle, should be careful of absorbing expensive talent without cash inflow from customers or exceptional fundraising ability. Some people are able to fundraise. I look at them and I'm like, wow. The company doesn't even do anything and you've raised 50 million. Wow. I don't know how they do it. And that's my lack, right? Maybe I don't know the internal workings of this system. But still, unless you have exceptional fundraising ability, you should avoid absorbing expensive talent that wants to do things for personal exploration, like filmmaking. We are in the game of efficiency. Can we do it in a studio in as short a period of time as possible? Can we use existing models and build use cases that customers pay for? It's a much simpler problem statement, right? It's wise to solve problems first that don't require too much upfront investment. And there are enough and more problems in this country to be solved without you having to go invest 20 crores into the business. Till now, we've never done that. Invest crazy amount of money or anything. We're not a real estate company. Next slide. So, this is not just true for you in this room, but it's also true for everybody watching this online, which is now everything will be performance driven. 2001, we had this time where everyone could come. People have worked in unprofitable companies for 5-6 years of their lives. They've never worked at a company making profit. Your marketing has to now drive conversions. If you're a marketing person, now it has to drive conversions. Your content now has to get views and engagement. Time pass, you can't do content saying, I want to do this. Everyone comes to us and says, now I want to start this kind of channel. You get us views and engagement, then we'll talk about it. Right? After that, we'll take the risk. But till then, you're on your own. Your code has to make money. It can't be code for the sake of code. Right? So there's this temptation with most engineers to build the next, I'll build a framework. And this happened in Google where they incentivized people to go do experimental projects and people just did that for promotions. Just build experimental projects that made no money. Your salary has to make sense in the P&L. So some of you, I won't say you guys because we have been pretty careful about this, but when people come in, they're like, some crazy salary expectation that they've heard on Instagram. And that's the problem with marketing. One guy will make a post saying, oh, today, this role, let's say typist is now making 3 lakhs a month or whatever, or 30 lakhs an annum. Here's how you can make, that's everyone's hook, right? That's hook. Here's how this guy is making 75 lakhs an annum, doing this bakchodi. It's not his fault. It's the game. That's the problem with social media. So 21 free hits are over. Okay. Theory, and a lot of you are very theory this thing, right? I know many people, both on the content side as well as on this side, I know how to do this crazy effect. मैंने video देखा इसका. Or someone on the engineering side who will be like, yeah, we should do this. Theory is no longer sought after. Companies don't want theory anymore. They want execution. Can you build a product that solves a problem? Or can you give a service that solves a problem? It's so simple. It's so easy. But yet, we go back and we're like, maybe, what we're lacking is theory. It's the entire Indian education system problem. It's like a Viva system. You know what the Viva system, it's the Vivification of work. I have to go, I read cracking the coding interview, I go into the engineering interview and I have to answer these 10 questions right, answer that one specific pair programming challenge, and then I'm in. But that's not what people want anymore. People are like, I don't care, you work here, you give me output, client is happy with your work, or you're building a product and you're doing it fast enough, great, that's all I want. So world is changing, and the gap between potential, what you think in your head that you are, and success is proven performance. Now you need to prove. Sachin now needs to prove that he's good at ads. He can't just say, "Mujhe aata hai chalane ke liye." Now he has to prove that he's good at it. Right? So I call this the test, because to be honest, for many years I had this idea in my head that I have crazy potential when I was young, but I got belted by the test. And at some point, it's inevitable. Everyone has to go through the test in your career. And I can tell you, in this company, everyone who's done well has been through the test. Something where they were really put on the spot and they had to pull a miracle off for the client. Or whatever they're building, right? And most youngsters have been far disconnected from the commercial outcome of the business. An editor is completely disconnected from the outcome of a creator's earnings. Do you know this? Do you know what that means? You don't know, and same for engineers, right? An engineer at Zomato doesn't know, well, this line of code that I shipped, how much is it making or saving for Zomato? Same with an editor. Do you know कि अगर मैं ये video edit किया, how much does that increase the top line of the creator's earning? You have no idea. But sales guys, on the other hand, they damn well know. Right? A sales guy knows, I have contributed this much to the company. I have cost the company this much, I have contributed this much. Right? And sales is ultimately what makes the company money. So I wish everyone was able to work in sales for a few weeks of their lives. So they just got this thing of actually a few months of their life. So they at least know how much it costs to do what they do on a daily basis and just be given the freedom to do creative stuff. Next slide. So this is the test. Okay. This is this is hyperbole, but 9 out of 10 youngsters I meet think they'll be the next Elon Musk. Rohit was telling me this. We're sitting in a room and we had some guy come in and he was like, he said something and then he left and Rohit was like, Elon Musk. Like me and Rohit just have this thing. We pointed at a guy and we're like, okay, this guy is like Elon Musk. Right? In their minds, their potential is unlimited. Like me when I was young. I'm also guilty of this. This is not unique. I started consuming content far before anyone else did because I got an internet connection early in my life and it was US Reddit bullshit in my head when I was younger. Right? So that potential has to meet ground reality. Okay? This is measured in commercial performance. How much money do you guys make the company or how much money you make yourself? Most collisions of your potential in your head and ground reality leads to ground reality winning. It's actually damn hard to build a successful business. Right? And a lot of people who have left us to go start the exact same thing are realizing this now. It's actually damn hard to make everything play together and make money. Seasoned, tested talent is humble because they know the test is hard and has lower expectations. When you're seasoned, you come in and you're like, okay, now I know this is hard. I know this is not worth taking on. Like that's why I love working with people like Harsha and Tejas, right? But they're like, yeah, we can build a product, but that's crazy amount of risk for the company to absorb right now. And the ROI is unclear. Most people go decades without the test. You could live your entire life not being tested on whether you have driven leads, conversion, anything for the company. But the minute you align, like my job, whatever I'm doing has to align to give leads to the company. When you're editing, let's say for the Varun Maya channel, and you're like, okay, we are doing a brand deal for this company. Can we do something that doesn't piss off our audience, but drives more conversions for the company? What's a better narrative? Instead of somebody else telling you that, if you can think through that, you're past the test. Or you're getting close to testing yourself. Sagar is a great example of this. Sagar literally scaled a channel by himself and he was like, he's very confident he can do it again. That's the thing about the test. Once people have passed the test, they're confident now. I can do it one more time. I can do it 2 more times. Next slide. Okay. I'm going to change the table. Till now, I've been speaking as an employer. Now, I want to tell you how you can take advantage of me and all of them. This is how employees can now leverage and take advantage of their employers. Right? This is also for people online. It all flips around. Once you pass the test, once something you have done has led to meaningful commercial outcomes, whether directly or as directly as possible. Some of you are slightly indirect, like an engineer would be slightly indirect, but still you'll know whether you've contributed to some outcome. You have a new asset. The asset is leverage. You have proven leverage. If you can perform again and again, you gain even more leverage. You know why people really come to us today, at least on the content side? We do the AI side and the content side. People really come to us on the content side because we get people performance. 8 out of 10 times, sure, we still fail 20% of the time because this content is so hard. But 8 out of 10 times when a client comes to us, we get them the views. On the AI business solution side, when a client comes to us, like Amazon Prime, for example, we do such a good job on the first one, and we've lost money on the first one, where the second time they come back and they love us. They've built a relationship. And that relationship continues to compound. So if you can perform again and again, you get even more leverage. And people with leverage can demand any price they want and are widely sought after. The table is not like, once you gain leverage, it's not that you make 10% increment, 20% increment. You can ask for whatever you want once you have real leverage. And this cannot be faked with credit taking. We have too many people who go out there and say, I built EOS. I built labs. We really have these kind of people, by the way. It's so stupid because everyone, like I said, they do due diligence, they call us. So you cannot fake this with credit taking because eventually, okay, even if you get a deal saying, I'm really great at content I did for this other company and I did everything end to end. The other company, can you perform for them? Because if you don't perform for them, then next slide. There are 9 types of leverage. Okay? Skill, management ability, experience in a specific domain, relationships and distribution, cash, data, assets, technology, brand. Next slide. Okay? Skill and technology are getting commoditized. And maybe also because of how we've built the company, right? Video editors is not finding a skilled video editor is not like an insane challenge for us. It's getting commoditized. Finding a very skilled developer today, especially after lots of people are being laid off, is not too much of a challenge. And even the technology. It's not like today Hollywood has some, there was a time, by the way, when I was younger, I went to some animation academy when I was like very, very young, right, to learn animation. And that time they had exclusive licenses of Maya. I don't know whether they had pirated it or what, but that was like 3D software, 3ds Max and Maya. And I was like, crazy, these guys have this software. I don't know how to get it at home. And they are on discs and all. Today, everyone has Blender in 3D. So there was a time where live streaming only few companies can do. Now everyone can do. So technology is getting commoditized over time. So you have to rely on one of these few things. Next slide. Okay, let me tell you something about skill, okay? Supply-demand economics exists in all kinds of leverage too. Okay? For example, we posted a post recently about, we have a job board, do you know this? On Super DM. We got 1,600 resumes for full stack developers, but just 4 resumes for VFX artists. If you are, and this is more for people online, right? Because everyone here already has a job. If you're looking for a job, why would you add one more number here? Why not add one number here? Sure, the number of companies here hiring is lesser, but the competition here is so much more that I think it's better to do this and do discovery a little better, no? You can't go where the traffic is. If you're looking for a job especially, and this is even for people here who might be looking for a job outside for whatever, whenever, 3 years later, 5 years later, whenever it is, tomorrow, whenever it is. You can't go where the traffic is. You have to do something sufficiently different from the rest of the world that the world really needs. Being early to a new industry or solving a problem for less sexy industry is better. And again, more for the people online where there's a line of people outside of cred saying, I want to be a designer for cred. But that same line isn't standing for a real estate company. And if you're a good designer and you're able to build a relationship, like I said, relationship is a leverage. You can get paid just as much in a good real estate company helping them sell their products. They make more money. They make real hard cash. For VCs in 2021, and this is the other side of the table, right? Cash was not the leverage as supply demand got temporarily skewed. In 2021, if you went and you said, one VC is giving me 3 crores, 10 other VCs are standing in line saying, nahi, main 3.1 crore de dunga, 3.5 crore de dunga. That time is over, but that time cash stopped being the leverage for a short period of time. So you need to find what has leverage now. Okay? So, and this is also, all these leverage are also the intangibles you get from working in the company. When people look at package, okay, you see, okay, I'm getting whatever, X number of lakhs per annum, 10 lakhs an annum, 20 lakhs an annum, 5 lakhs an annum. But you're not seeing that every company gives you intangibles. Not only is a company helping you gain skill, okay, because you're working on the job. That's the best way to learn. You're also learning management ability because you're managed by people above you. You learn, okay, like a Bharat will say, okay, this is how Harsha is doing this. Okay, maybe I should learn from that. Because Harsha has had a few years doing management, right? But you also get the opportunity to manage down, right? So, for example, an Ivan would be like, okay, how do I manage DOPs? Or a Devan should be like, how do I manage the DOPs? You learn that experience the hard way, right? Okus has learned the hard way how to manage people downwards. Ki ye nahi sun raha hai, how do I deal with this? So you gain that experience, right? This cannot be taught. It's very hard to teach this. Experience in a specific domain. So if you're working, let's say with us, you gain experience with content. We are mainly focused on content. And you learn a lot, right? If you're a developer and you're here, you still learn so much more about content. If you're a filmmaker, you're like, oh, this is how VFX is done. You see all the experiments happening live. So you learn stuff. Then there's relationships and distribution. Tomorrow, if you want to start a company, the best people to start a company with, even though I'm shooting myself in the foot for saying this, is people around you. I didn't have this network when I was young. Engineers, software engineers, designers, VFX artists, video editors, some robotics guys sitting there, right? So you have like this relationship set that you build. And even if it's not like you going and starting a company with them, that's too risk, that's high risk. It could also be like maybe you move on and you need some help from somebody who in the industry who knows something. You have people around you. Very hard to do, especially lots of kids who want to do this work from home. You have zero, like you're basically losing this entire leverage. Even the experience, you're losing leverage because you can just walk to our studio and be like, okay, what are you guys up to? Right? Which you don't gain work from home. This is for the people online especially. Then there's cash. There's a difference between doing something by yourself and doing something with company resources. All the filmmakers here, the equipment we have today, which we built over the last, let's say, 4 months, how would you get this otherwise? It'd be expensive, right? So you're basically using the assets and the cash of the company to do things that you wouldn't have been able to do otherwise, right? And even I see it the same way, by the way. My company's assets are not mine. My company, it's not like I own the company's assets and, it's like I get to take it home every day. It's like, okay, this is an asset, I use it. And it's also for use for everybody else. Let's see if we can use these to generate more cash. If we have better green screens or whatever it is, right? Then there's, of course, data. And I think we have now some data here and there to know, not just in terms of insights, data as in which clients ka kya chal raha hai, but also in terms of we have our backend YouTube dashboards. We know roughly what works, what doesn't. For many years, I used to go to many creators. I've done this with Sharan. I've done this with Tanmay. I've done this with probably every creator I've met. Show me YouTube dashboard. I want to see your stats. I'm notorious for doing this. So I'll see the stats. I'll be like, okay, why is this low? Why is that high? Why did this video do well? So data is very valuable and data only comes from proximity, right? Like sitting next to somebody. Then of course, technology, which again, in our case is assets. And then there's a brand. Today, you would rather intern at Apple for zero pay, than get paid 30K a month at some Lalu Prasad company. Why? Because your next employer will look at Apple on your CV and say, oh my God, he worked at Apple. I'll tell you one thing, we have also been guilty of this. If there's a big name on a CV, we will take an interview. Be like, let's see if he's good or not. Like the one way to be uncluttered in interviews, go to a company that people recognize. Serious companies like I spoke about. So if you worked at any serious company, from the Zerodhas of the world to the Blinkits of the world, whatever, if we recognize the name. And to be honest, with EOS, we are now, even though we're very young, we're starting to become more recognizable. So EOS on your CV means something. It's not baked into your CTC, but it's meaning something to your life. But the minute you stay there for 3 months and then say, I built EOS, that doesn't work. You got to be there for a while. And people look at how long you've been at a certain place. Somebody's gone to like a Facebook but worked there for 2 months, even we don't take it seriously. Employers are not dumb. Next slide. Yeah. This is the truth you can't say on social media, by the way. I'm taking a risk by saying it. One of you is going to feed me poison. Which is that actually interning for zero at an Apple will do more for your career. We don't have an internship. I don't think we do internships at the company. We just do full-time salaries for everyone. We're just like, let's not get into this janjat. But interning at Apple for zero will do more for your career than a 50K per month job at some no-name company. Because it's Apple. And Apple rarely hires. That's such a filter, right? So that's brand leverage in action. And this is a truth you can't say on social media. Right? That's why I said you can't say enough truths on social media. Next slide. Now I'm going to tell you important part. How to negotiate for a raise. Okay. I'm telling you a little bit of founder psychology. So I'll tell you a little bit of my psychology and the founders we have here and also the founders outside. Most founders are lonely. They've been through a 5-10 year journey before they are in a position where they can give you good cash. Or they're VC funded and I don't know what works for them because they're not really thinking it through. They're not stable companies either. Bootstrap founders will never part with cash upfront unless there's appropriate value provision. Okay, so if you come to me and you say, Varun, there's this project and it's making X and I'm Y in this, and then after all your whatever costs, you're still making good this thing, or you're expanding revenue for us. If you come in and you expand revenue for me, that's a very big deal for me. Like with the hardware team now, with the experiments team now, we're trying some VFX because if that works, that expands revenue for us. Right? So that I don't mind taking up the upfront risk for it because I'm like, okay, if it works, I can see how it expands revenue. Founders really value loyalty. There used to be a time where, how many of you believe, so there's two things, right? Loyalty and meritocracy. You know what meritocracy is? What's a meritocracy? Merit basis. Ki kitna skilled hai. If I were to choose between two people and promote them or give them benefits, who would I choose? Merit and loyalty. What should I choose rationally? Okay, everyone said merit. Some people are saying loyalty. Okay, somebody who said merit, tell me why merit.
Because it's like on paper is better than the other guy.
Skill wise. Okay, why would the other people choose loyalty? Actually, one of those guys there tell me. Harsha, why would you choose? Actually, will any of you choose loyalty?
Yeah.
Okay, why would you choose loyalty?
I choose loyalty because long-term. So the argument for meritocracy is in the short term probably the most skilled person, better outcomes. But with loyalty, the long-term outcomes are probably better.
Yeah, so because I have a mic on, I'll just repeat what he said. He said, in the short term, meritocracy works. In the long term, loyalty is better. I'll tell you what one of the challenges of being extremely meritocracy, with being a pure merit org, right? So people come in, they're extremely, good at what they do. But the problem is, like I said, skill is commoditizing, right? And actually I'm finding it harder to keep people for like 2 years, 3 years, whatever. We're young and we've managed to keep everybody. But most founders have a hard time keeping really good talent because really good talent right now is very distracted. So it doesn't matter how good you are if you aren't willing to commit for a year or 2 years, right? For a while. What's the purpose of being good if you can't commit? It's like saying, I'm getting married, but for 1 month. But she's the best girl ever. It's useless. It's like, it's not something that's valuable, especially through the hard years. Just like we're having good times today, we will have bad times at some point. I'm damn sure of it because I've eaten dirt for 10 years. So founders really value loyalty, especially during the hard times, right? And extraction of value from a relationship, again, I'm batting for your side, is best done after a few years. Because it's very hard to say, they go, 1 month, I've done this, I'm very loyal to you, now give this thing. There have been people around for a year, 2 years. Actually, people who are making the most amount of money in this company are people who have been with me for many, many years. And I'm sure they will treat their employees in the same way. You've stuck around with them for 3-4 years, you get everything. Especially as the company does better, you get more and more and more if you've been around for a while. Because we know we can trust you, we know we can count on you. That's the hardest thing today, actually. And knowledge of a company situation is valuable. If a particular company, and especially because we are a bunch of companies, if you know that a company is doing well, it's easier for you to ask for a raise. If you know a company's margins are lower, it is harder for you to ask for a raise, right? And it's best done after a few years. So our raise cycle is once a year. So let's say you join on Feb 1st, you can only talk about a raise Feb 1st the next year. So whenever you join 1 year from there, you can ask for a raise. We don't do midway raise. We are not too big for that to, continuously revise numbers or whatever. And we're also not, there was a time when we started where we didn't have crazy budgets. But now we still don't have crazy budgets, but we pay everyone market salary or close to market salary. What you're looking for success, in general, this is not just related to you, is you're looking for a fast growing company, fast growing in terms of profit, not in headcount. Profit with close proximity to decision makers. There are companies you would work at, maybe real estate and all that, where you wouldn't even be able to talk to the founders. You won't even know what's going on in their head. You won't even know what's important to them, right? So fast growing company, close proximity to decision makers in profit. Successful founders are tested and hence value humility. Dude, I had a guy come the other day to the office. I'm not going to take names, but the most 20 years old, obvious, normal. I was like that probably. Where he came and he's like, we're doing this, we know this. Zero humility, right? Of understanding that this is damn hard and doing this 10, 20 years, it'll burn you out. Anyway, whatever. So good founders value humility. If you come to me and say this is 100% going to work, I'll be like, really? You'll prove it to me, 100% will work? But I prefer people who come and say, there's a 50% chance this will work, and these 3 parts I don't know, but we'll figure it out. Right? I love people who can figure it out. I love working with people who can figure it out. Not just me, every founder. If you say, Varun, I will take time, but I'll figure it out. And if it's not possible, I'll tell you it's not possible. And you want an accurate assessment. Sometimes Vishal comes to me and like, it's not working. It's a problem with this system. And I'll be like, no, I've tried it before. It works. And then he'll tweak it and it'll work. And he'll be like, yeah, it's working now. So as much as I respect Vishal for like always eventually figuring it out, it also worries me when he gives me an inaccurate assessment. Right? Sometimes Ocus does this, inaccurate assessment of where it'll go. So I like optimism. Most founders like optimism, but we don't mind people saying we don't know or we'll figure it out. But you can't use that for everything. Steve Jobs has this quote, between the janitor and the CEO, excuses stop mattering. So the janitor, you know what that means? Like if a maid comes in and maid says, wo door band tha, fair, I understand her argument. But if you're the CEO and you say, I wasn't able to add whatever my target in revenue, nobody's going to save you. You can't give an excuse. If you're an executive and you're being paid an executive, you have to get results by hook or crook. Last thing, staying in the company for long periods of time is a hidden leverage. And we have proof of that in the company. Tejas, Harsha, they've been with me in previous companies also. Siddhant, staying around really matters. And actually having lower expectations also really matters, because Ron is an example of this, where he came in, he had low expectations, and then he just did such a good job that we're like, you have won my trust, right? Let's do something cool together. Okay, this is the last slide, I think, but one slide. So you now can go break out for lunch, dinner, whatever it is. There are 3 ways to make big money. The first one is you stay in a fast growth company for years and hope for your ESOPs to materialize. Most of the time it doesn't work out. So you could join like the next startup that raises $30 million straight out the bat, join them, hope the ESOPs materialize. You're not betting on anything apart. You're not betting on the founder's ability to build technology. You're not betting on the founder's ability to do marketing. You're betting on the founder's ability to make profit. Okay? And not just profit, but also IPO. Because most people I'll tell you the problem. The problem is most people who can make profit won't IPO. Especially if you know how to make good profit. Do you know why? Why would you want to be controlled by the market? Every day, anything you do, anything you say, the market saying good things, bad things about you. You can't live your life. It's like being in shackles. Private company, bootstrap is the best. The minute you've raised funding also, you have to listen to investors. So most people who can turn a profit, to them ESOPs is not as meaningful. But still, if you look at Zero, that they do buybacks. They buy back some of the ESOPs over time. So there are ways it can work out, but you're really betting on somebody's ability to do profit. For most of you, any ESOP you get in any company, whether here or outside, just assume it's worth zero. It's toilet paper, basically. The next thing is start a company at an inflection point. Something has just changed and you think there's a company required here. It's very risky, takes 10 years to work out. Timing has to be perfect. Actually, I don't know if you know this, but I've been doing 3D avatar stuff now for like 4-5 years. Much longer than that. I started with game engines when I was with Reality Factory like when I was 13 or something, 13, 14 or something. And there are videos of me, old videos where even before MetaHuman, we were doing like a 3D avatar, right? So we've been doing this avatar replacement shit for a long time. It's just now it's become good on reels and shorts. So you need to also time it such that what will be popular in 10 years, take the risk now, and then play out those 10 years in life. Very, very hard to do. It's really hard to do. And last, the easiest way in my opinion, gain leverage and get to a senior position at a well-known company and work for 20 to 25 years. This is something never told on social media. It will take you 20 years to make serious money. If you work here or anywhere else. And I can guarantee you, for most of you, it will take this much time to make good money. Retirement level money, 20, 25 years. Just like it was for your parents. Nobody wants to hear this. You're like, 5 years, how do I get a Lamborghini and get out of this? But it takes time. Even if you're damn smart, even if you're damn connected, it takes time. Last thing is gamble. Invest in some crazy risky thing, some new coin, this, that, whatever. Some shit or the other keeps coming out. But there, the risk is almost certain. But you'll still find one guy, who is invested in like something and they've made 100x their money or whatever. And then you'll be like, but that's the problem. By the time the guy is invested, it's already too late. Now you can't invest and make that money. But you'll have such people. You should never look at them and say, oh shit, he's doing better in life than me. He gambled and won. It's like looking at a guy who won a lottery ticket and being like, and envying his life. It's so strange. I've seen it with some of you, right? Especially with the crypto boom and all. You looked at your friends making some crazy money in crypto and you're like, oh, he made so much money. But it's like looking at some guy who won a lottery ticket and saying, why does he have, oh, he's made so much money. You don't envy a lottery ticket guy's lifestyle. So why are you envying the crypto guy's lifestyle? It's fine. One wins, 100 die. Anyway, do you have any other slides? That was long. And I'm sorry for taking so much time, but I think it was important that I told you how youngsters were thinking, because 90% of you were kind of thinking something along these lines. And I thought, might as well tell you what it took for us and how long it will generally take. Nobody wants to plan out 20 years of their life, but you need to, right? And we don't know what's going to happen in 20 years. AI might come, anything can happen. But long-term loyalty really matters in any company, especially as AI comes around the corner and skill becomes less and less important. Loyalty and just being around, being able to absorb responsibility and risk matters. Yeah, that's it. For everyone online, bye.